Hi guys, and welcome back to that Oxford Girl on YouTube. I've been asking you over the last few weeks to send in questions that you'd like answered about student life at Oxford Uni. And one that keeps coming up is, what is an Oxford tutorial like? And I can completely understand why people are asking this, because this was something I was so nervous about before I started at Oxford. To give you a little background, the Oxford tutorial system is what makes Oxford and Cambridge University really unique. Whereas at other unis you might have seminars or lectures where you can kind of hide at the back and maybe not get too involved or have to contribute if you don't want to, at Oxford there really is nowhere to hide, because the tutorial system means you will meet with your tutors once or twice a week, either alone or in pairs or maybe a three, but you will be on the spot and you will have to answer questions about your subject. This will usually be on a piece of work that's been set the previous week, and there'll then be an hour-long discussion on your essay or your worksheet or your maths problem sheet, and it can be really scary because you are very much in the limelight. So when considering whether or not to apply to Oxford, it's worth thinking about whether that tutorial setting would work for you as a person and as a learner. Now, the tutorial system really is a bit like the interviews. So they're a really good chance to work out whether or not that system does suit your style of learning, because it's a chat with the tutors. They're not trying to trick you, they're trying to help you to learn, and it's a great way to teach you to learn and think independently. And by the time you leave Oxford, you're used to being sat on the spot with nowhere to hide and having to answer quite difficult questions, which puts you in a really great position for working life and future highly pressured environments. So I thought I'd share with you today my first ever Oxford tutorial, and it wasn't the best. So as you guys know, I read English at Jesus College, and in the summer before starting we were given a really long book list of books that we had to get through, and also an essay to prepare on what was called the literary canon. And we were given this massive book full of literary criticism on which to base the essay on. I literally had no idea what any of the essays included in this book were about. They very much seemed like they were written in a completely different language. I thought I was studying English, but I had no idea what they were saying, and it took me a really long time to get my head around. And I started to panic. I started to think, oh my goodness, all the other students starting are going to understand what these are all about. No way am I clever enough, and this is going to be a disaster. But I read them, and I read them, and I read them, and eventually felt I kind of grasped what they were saying. So I wrote my essay on the literary canon, did it to the best of my ability, and turned up to my first tutorial. And yeah, it was just me and the tutor, so there was no one else who could answer the questions, nowhere else to kind of hide. I just had to sit there and discuss this essay that really I didn't feel that confident about. And I was right, because the tutor turned round to me and said I'd kind of got the wrong end of the stick, and a lot of the essay didn't really make sense. I just wanted the ground to swallow me up, I wanted to cry, I felt like I shouldn't be there, I was a massive imposter, and when at the end of the tutorial she said that if I liked I could rewrite it for her, I was in panic mode. We'd already been set a million more books to read, a load more essays, old English translations, etc., and I couldn't see when there would be any time to rewrite this essay. So I came out of the tutorial feeling really despondent, and I wandered into the quad and I sat on the bench feeling pretty fed up. And there was another girl who had also had a tutorial in English, and she sat next to me, and I asked her how her essay had gone, and she turned around and said that hers was covered in ticks and it had been a really great tutorial, and that just made me feel even worse, and I was certain that they'd made some sort of mistake in picking me. So I went back to my room and I phoned my mum. I was sobbing down the phone saying that she needed to come and get me because they'd clearly made a big mistake and I shouldn't be here. And my mum was trying to tell me that, you know, that was normal and everyone felt that way at the beginning, but the sobbing was getting louder and louder, and then there was a knock on the wall, and I thought, oh my god, someone's heard, this is so stressful. And there was a yoga class going on next door, and they asked if I could keep the noise down. So my day had just gone from bad to worse. I was now in my room crying, and there was a whole class of yoga students who now knew that my tutorial had been a complete and utter disaster, and I didn't think I was good enough for Oxford. And the whole thing just made me feel like I shouldn't be there. But what I want to tell you is that is totally normal. When it came to later in the term and I bonded with my year group, we all talked about the fact that actually we'd all found our first tutorials to be really nerve-wracking, really stressful, and nobody had really particularly thought they'd gone very well. And what I would say is take it with a pinch of salt when people say that things have gone brilliantly. Often it's just a way to hide your nerves. No one wants to be the kind of vulnerable one at the beginning. But actually, as the term progressed, we all realised we were there to learn. The tutorials were never going to be a grand success where we knew everything, because otherwise there was absolutely no point in being at Oxford. And to be honest, even towards the end of my degree, I still got a little bit nervous for tutorials. It's just you and the tutor, and they're these world experts that you're having to discuss your subject with. So there's always that kind of inferiority complex, but that's normal. And they're a great way to learn. They prepare you so well for later in life. So that's my Oxford tutorial story. There are plenty more on the blog, so be sure to check out that oxfordgirl.com and that Oxford Girl on Instagram to see my student ambassadors' experiences. And yeah, if you think that the Oxford tutorial system might be for you, then definitely look into applying.